Welcome back. You're watching the France 24 debate. Watch out, Washington. India's new prime minister is coming. This after taking New York by storm. Narendra Modi's makeover from pariah to guest of honor at the White House later will cap a triumphant tour that's seen Modi talk to the UN and a sellout crowd at Manhattan's most famous arena, denied a visa over 2002 riots in his home state of Gujarat that left scores dead. Modi to go from Madison Square Garden to the Rose Garden via a sit-down with top U.S. business leaders. So, what does the Obama administration make of this charismatic Hindu nationalist leader? How closely will they work together on issues such as China, peace building in Afghanistan, which, by the way, today inaugurated a new president, and trade? Modi won by a landslide, promising to slash bureaucracy and open up India's economy. Is he on the right track? Today in the France 24 debate, Modi in America. And with us from Washington, Anil Gupta, who teaches management at the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. He is in the U.S. Capitol. Thank you for being with us here on France 24. And joining us in a short while from Mumbai, Divya Rajagopal, journalist for the Economic Times. Narendra Modi, by the way, didn't just play the Garden, as they say in New York. He attended an event in Manhattan with Hugh Jackman. He went to City Hall. He spoke at the UN. He shook hands with New Jersey's governor. And all in the middle of a 9-day religious fast. Anil Gupta, he'll be fasting at the White House?
Looks like it. He's been doing it for 20-plus years, so I don't think he's likely to change anytime soon.
All right, well, Prime Minister Modi's message when he does meet Obama will probably be akin to the one he gave to the thousands that filled Madison Square Garden, the focus on the future, while his critics would like to see the U.S. president remind him of his past.
They wore his face on their chests, waved it on posters, chanted his name, and quoted his slogans. 19,000 fans drawn to a single star. Indian Premier Narendra Modi delivered a triumphal address to tens of thousands of Indian Americans and U.S. dignitaries in Madison Square Garden in New York on Sunday. He urged the diaspora to join his movement for the development of India.
India has a lot of opportunities. I have recently launched an initiative. I invite the whole world and everyone sitting here. I invite everyone to participate in Make in India.
His decisive election as Premier Minister in May captured the imagination of Indians around the world. Many now see him as the only man for the job.
He spoke like a world leader. That's been lacking in mostly all of India's leadership in the past. We've had politicians, but no genuine world leader. 1/6 of humanity definitely deserves a person who can talk and kind of get a whole movement started.
Being courted by Washington marks a major change since 2005. Back then, the U.S. denied Modi a visa for his alleged complicity in sectarian violence in his home state of Gujarat in 2002. Hindu mobs went on a rampage of revenge after a train carrying Hindu pilgrims were torched, killing 59 people. More than 1,000 others eventually died in the violence, most of them Muslims.
Divya Rajagopal, what's the take from Mumbai, where you are, on this red carpet treatment? And by the way, Narendra Modi, it's not many foreign leaders who get to go not one day, but two to the White House. He'll be back there again on Tuesday. How's it being played in the press where you are?
Well, in Indian press, it's a euphoric time. I mean, after a really abysmal performance by the previous government, Narendra Modi is looked as someone who gives hope to a lot of Indians. Now, there is a lot of euphoria. The press is still giving him time and lot of publicity in terms of, still quite optimistic on how he's going to shape up things. But here is where his real test begins. I mean, it's just 100 days that he has taken charge. But still, now is the chance, or is the time for Narendra Modi to walk the talk. Will he implement all the promises that he's made? He has built huge expectations. He has made lots of promises. So now is the time for him to actually walk what he had promised.
Anil Gupta, it's often said that the painful reforms should be made early in a mandate. Is Narendra Modi going fast enough?
In my view, yes. And in fact, I don't agree with some of his critics who say that he has not yet made big bang policy reforms because basically I look at it, think of it like a pipe that you put in policies from the top and then you have action at the ground level. And one of the serious problems in India that we have had, at least over the last 5 years, but for much longer time, is the inability to walk the talk. And what Modi has been doing is really to clean out the pipe, to get the bureaucracy working, to get the ministers and the cabinet working. Already, in fact, he has made many policy moves. For example, increasing FDI in insurance, in defense, in the rail sector, launching campaigns for cleanliness in India, for the bank account for 75 million people within a matter of months. So if we think about the actions that he has begun to make, they are actually putting in place the foundations for bigger policy reforms, at least I would say after a year, when his party has control of the upper house of parliament, or is likely to have control of the upper house of parliament.
Right now, the trip to the United States, he's part of one of the big items on the agenda is convincing U.S. businesses that it's okay to do business in India. And yet, I'll put this to you, Anil Gupta, the fact that India is hesitant to sign on a new world free trade deal has many thinking that the India of old is still there.
Yes, and in fact, I think the backtracking on the World Trade Deal is something that I particularly don't like, and I don't hold that as a plus move on the Modi government's part. That said, basically the reasons for American multinationals to be thinking of India as perhaps the #1 most important destination for FDI is because if you look around the world, I mean, China is slowing down dramatically and has overcapacity in many industries. Plus, China has systematically, over the last 6 months, become less friendly to multinationals. So when the American MNCs look around, actually, India still comes across, despite some of the negatives about India that still need to be removed, as actually one of the most favored destinations. So essentially, the multinationals are ready for India, and now Mr. Modi's job is to make sure that India is ready for the multinationals.
It's interesting listening to you, Anil, and I'll put this to Divya now. The word China seems to always creep into the conversation whether he's traveling to Japan to visit the like-minded nationalist Shinzo Abe, whether he's launching a space capsule to Mars. There's always this talk about the rivalry with China. Divya Rajagopal, is China the big obsession, you'd say, right now?
So the obsession is more to, catching up with China, which I don't know how far is that going to happen, because if you see the comparison between India and China, we are still way behind in catching up where China is. I mean, I heard you talking about the TRIPS agreement. I don't think that Narendra Modi probably would have the option to kind of tweak around with the TRIPS agreement. Now, intellectual property is one thing which is bothering companies across the world, especially the pharma companies who want to come and invest in India. Intellectual property is under the board of contention, and this is going to be one issue which he will be discussing with the United States. Now, coming back to the point of China, China has made relatively easier in terms of giving a strong IP protection to companies who are coming to China and investing in them. So the number of R&D investment that goes to China is still much higher than what it is in India. So will Narendra Modi tweak around with the TRIPS agreement? Will he change India's intellectual property? Now, this is going to be the big challenge in front of him. And when I say that he has to walk the talk, this is what I mean. Will he change an IP regime, which most of the companies absolutely don't want to invest in India because of its stringent IP regulations, where they feel that there is no protection.
So what you're saying, Divya, is that talk about what happened back in 2002, that refusal to give a visa, all that is old news. What's much more important when Modi sits down with Obama at the White House is India going to be reforming when it comes to intellectual property?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not intellectual property is going to be one of the biggest discussions with the United States, but that's going to be what the world would be watching for. You know, it's great. It's quite euphoric that the NRI is afraid that Modi is coming to the country and things like that. But now comes when he sits with Obama, this is where the whole discussion will fall into place. How open is India in inviting multinational companies into the country? And this is the time, going to be the test for Modi on how he really balances those things.
Anil Gupta, will he pass the test when it comes to intellectual property?
I think he will definitely pass the test. Actually, on intellectual property, allow me to significantly and seriously disagree with the other guest, because I have done significant analysis on this, on intellectual property in China and in India. And actually, the intellectual property regime in India is significantly better than in China. And in fact, if we look at the top 20
but is it good enough for U.S. businesses?
It's actually the top 20 American technology companies do 10 times more R&D in India than they do in China. So yes, in fact, there are certain issues of contention for sure, and actually the pharma sector. But the pharma sector, I think, hijacked the IP issue between US and India. If you look at in the IT sector, if you look at companies in machinery like GE, like Caterpillar, you look at what they do in R&D in India is 10 times more than what they do in China. And the number one reason is not because Indian market is bigger than China. In fact, the opposite. The number one reason is because these companies believe that India's IP regime is significantly better than China. So I think, yes, there are issues to be sorted out, but I'm not at all concerned about, that IP would be a big bone of contention between India and the US. I think the big issues between India and the US when Mr. Modi meets Mr. Obama would be the World Trade Organization, the Trade Facilitation Agreement. That would be number one. Of course, defense and geopolitical ties, where in fact there's hardly any disagreement, but those clearly would be significant issues of discussion.
You say hardly no disagreement.
The civil nuclear.
I'm saying you say hardly no disagreement. What about when it comes to Afghanistan, where the United States has to also bear in mind the feelings of Pakistan when it comes to dealing with Afghanistan going forth as U.S. troops draw down?
Correct. I mean, in fact, so when I said hardly any disagreement, I clearly did not mean no disagreement. And Afghanistan, you pointed out correctly, is one such issue. But, as I see from India's side, is that the U.S. cannot continue to stay on in Afghanistan forever. And as the U.S. withdraws from Afghanistan, or in fact, as it is withdrawing from Afghanistan, that raises concerns in India. So there are some issues, but again, are those essentially things that need to be discussed versus major bones of contention? I don't think so. Because I think, as I look at the U.S.-India relationship, basically, it's like a house with rock-solid foundations, but with walls, that have over time developed some cracks. There are some leaks in the roof. They need to be fixed. So clearly, some work needs to be done. But the house is rock-solid foundations.
Divya Rajagopal, what do you see the personal chemistry being between Barack Obama on the one hand and Narendra Modi on the other?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, there was a column that was written in India on Barack Obama is right now, is sort of seen as the Manmohan Singh, the ex-Prime Minister of India. He is on his own slippery wicket. He's trying to prove to his own country, to prove his, mettle once again. So, does Obama really kind of, form in a bigger scheme of things right now? I don't know. Probably not. Even for Obama, does Narendra Modi become a big factor to kind of watch out for? Now, again, it all comes down to how the companies and the multinational, the business and investments pour into India post this visit. That's going to be the biggest. Everyone's going to be watching out for that. Will the bureaucratic, tensions ease out? Will doing business in India become much more easier than what it was with the previous government? Will the bottlenecks become much more flexible, which was not there earlier? Now, these are the things which, more than Obama, I think it's probably the industry that would be looking out for. So if you ask me for equations, I mean, that's something I can't talk about that.
Anil Gupta, would you agree that the Prime Minister of India will find more formidable opponents in the U.S. business community than he will at the White House?
I don't think so. You see, because if I look at U.S. businesses, for the banks, for the investment banks, India is the hottest, destination. Just recent reports that have come out, and then 2 days back I was in Zurich. I was speaking to a group of 100 money managers from around the world, and fully 49.5% voted in an anonymous survey right on the spot. India is the hottest investment destination for them. So I think the money managers, the Goldman Sachs and KKR and BlackRock and the like, find India very favorable conditions. Companies like GE, Caterpillar, Boeing, for them, India is, there are basically no issues. IT companies such as Microsoft and Google and Facebook, India is the hottest place for them. The companies that have some issues are clearly pharma companies. I absolutely agree with that. But the pharma and companies like Walmart in retail. So there are some U.S. multinationals that would have some issues with India, absolutely for sure. But to say that does U.S. Fortune 500 have issues with India today after Mr. Modi's election, I don't think so.
All right, on the campaign trail, Modi, by the way, pledging, as he put it, to put toilets before temples, a promise that development would come first. On Sunday in New York at Madison Square Garden, he was on message.
I have a dream that in 2022, when India will enter its 75th year of independence, everyone in our country will have a house to live in.
That's 7 years from now, Anil Gupta. Is he promising something he can't deliver?
I think I wouldn't say that it is something he cannot deliver. It is going to be a bit of a challenge, but at the same time, he is a phenomenal campaigner. He is a little bit like Bill Clinton, if you will. He is selling every moment to everybody that is willing to listen. And I think on this Toilets Before Temples campaign, that it wouldn't be just the government. He is already roping in the companies to play a huge role. And companies are, in fact, already beginning to play a significant partnership role. He's roping in NGOs. He's roping in the Gates Foundation. He's roping in students. And so I think through this, if it was just left up to the government to put toilets before temples, I think it would be a significantly bigger challenge. But the way he is going about it, I think he is dramatically increasing the chance that he would indeed accomplish what he wants to accomplish, which I think would be phenomenal.
All right, Divya Rajagopal, this brings us back to what Anil said at the beginning of our discussion, that he'll have a freer hand next year when there are elections in the upper house in India. Do you think that the honeymoon will last that long?
It probably would, but there are some decisions where you don't need the approval of the upper house. There are some legislations, there are some bills which can be passed without having the permission or the approval from the upper hand. So as I said, he's got a mandate. He's got the largest mandate that an Indian leader has ever got, probably after Indira Gandhi, who got it in 70s. So this is, as I said, this is the time when people would be looking out for. So the next budget, I might say, which might be coming in the February 2015, would be something which people would be watching out for, because that's the time that probably the honeymoon period, or probably the test of page, or test of people's patience, investors, voters. That's when it would come. What would Modi do probably during the budget of 2015? Would he go for the bold reforms which everyone is expecting him to go for? Would he announce the big bang, legislative changes that people are looking out for? It might be something like, a retrospective tax, allowing foreign investment. Now that's something big bone of contention. Now RSS, which is probably the governing body of the BJP, which probably takes lots of decisions on behalf of the party. Will that allow something like foreign investment, which has historically been against of? So I would say the honeymoon period or the test of people's patience, and when I say people, I'm including the investors, the voters. That's when really the test would come on to.
That's when the test will come. Divya, would you say that so far he has kept his promise, putting toilets before temples?
He's talking. We've not seen the implementation on ground yet. As I said, he's said all the right things. Now we really want to see him implement them on the ground.
Anil Gupta.
He's talking, just talking.
For now, for you, he's just talking. Anil Gupta, what's the signature piece of legislation that will silence the critics?
I think to look for one piece of legislation in a large, complex country which has been so terribly mismanaged over the last at least 5 years, I think to look for one piece of legislation.
But there must be a pet reform that's near to your heart, Anil.
I think in terms of reforms,
there are two things. First thing is something, the retrospective tax.
Hold on, sorry, one at a time. Anil Gupta.
Yeah. So the big reforms, I think, that I would look for, and I wouldn't look for them in the next 3 months, but I would indeed look for them over the next 12 months, would be in the area of labor laws, in terms of land acquisition, and in terms of the implementation of the national goods and services tax. Those would be the three big ones that I would look for.
Divya Rajagopal?
Yeah. I would say, coming up with an announcement which says no to retrospective tax. This is something which has really bothered companies. You can be taxed for some decisions which you have taken in, let's say, 5 years ago. That's something which I would expect him to come out and say that we are not going to kind of fine people retrospectively. That's one thing. Second thing would be foreign investment, especially something like retail. If he does that, then that would really something that would silence the critics. Opening up foreign investment in retail in India.
All right, Anil Gupta, one final question for you. The man who filled Madison Square Garden on Sunday night is obviously very charismatic. But what does that rally say about Indians in America?
I think Indians in America, they are, clearly, of course, all the census data since 2000 has indicated they have the highest level of per capita education and the highest per capita income of all ethnic groups, including white Americans in the United States. And so therefore, and what Indians have begun to do is really exert political clout that significantly exceeds the 3 million, just the sheer population number. And I think that what the Madison Square Garden did was really to energize the Indians in the U.S. even more. Clearly the ones who were present there, but the ones who were watching on television. And what it does, in a sense, is to get them even more active in fostering the U.S.-India relationship, not just in terms of influencing policy moves on the part of the U.S. government, but also actually policy moves on the part of the Indian government, because the Indian Americans have a stake on sound policies on both sides and actually an excellent, productive relationship between the U.S. and India.
They can't vote yet, though, in Indian elections.
Not in the Indian elections, not yet, but obviously they have an impact. In the campaign that just took place, they had an impact in terms of donations and in terms of their media visibility and impact.
Right, I heard that not yet, loud and clear. Anil Gupta, I want to thank you for for joining us today from Washington. I want to thank Divya Rajagopal for being with us from Mumbai. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.
Thank you.